Everybody, welcome to Fulfillment Project. Today, I've got a different kind of episode for you. 1 year ago, specifically 14 months ago, I set out to become a New York Times bestselling author. And I want to tell you what actually happened over the course of the last year. I spent $5,215. I made $306 back. Shockingly, I did make some money last year. And I built an audience of about 490 people across my platforms after starting literally from zero. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I became a better husband, a better father, a better businessman, and honestly, just a better man overall. So no, this is not a get rich quick story. If anything, it's the exact opposite. But it might be the most worthwhile bad investment I've ever made. And today I'm going to take you all the way under the hood. The money, the numbers, the failures, the faux pas, the people, nothing is off limits today. I want you to experience the last year as I did. You know, I'm doing this for 3 reasons. First, for me, and honestly, for my kids. I want something we can look back on, a journal, a time capsule of what Dad was building. Second, for you, the listener. I want you to see exactly what it takes to make this thing happen every week. And third, for anyone out there thinking about starting a podcast of your own. Because here's a stat that should make anyone question if they want to start a podcast. Roughly 90% of podcasts stop within their first few episodes. Most never getting past 3 episodes. And by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why that's the case. I'm not going to tell you whether to do it or not, but I'm going to hand you the math and you can do the arithmetic on your own and decide for yourself. Let's get into it. Oh, it's crazy to think back a whole year. It's all started with a book I hadn't written yet. I always wanted to be an author, and the writers who shaped me most were people I'd never actually met, Zig Ziglar among them, whose books I've worn out. I've referenced them to this day multiple times a year. The advice always sounded almost too simple. Write 1 page a day, and in a year, you'll have a book. But there's a paradox buried in that. The one Jim Rohn spent his career on. What's easy to do is just as easy not to do. Writing a page a day is easy. Not writing it is easier. It took me literally over 15 years to start my own book, not because it was hard, but because it was so easy to keep putting off. So I picked the easiest possible on-ramp, Substack. It's a platform built for writers. The idea was to put my thinking out there 1 piece at a time, get quick feedback on what ideas had legs, and compile a book over a couple of years. I posted 3 articles: In Pursuit of the Secret Life, Financial Independence, and Do the People We Hang Around With Matter? For those of you watching the video content on YouTube, you'll see me scrolling back on Substack to that very first article, March 14th, 2025. Oh my gosh. How crazy was that? After posting the first few articles, I realized something about myself. I consumed almost everything through my ears, podcasts, audio, when I was on the go. And I think most people are like that now. So I started recording myself reading those articles and pushing them out as audio through Substack, which fed into Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's so crazy going back on Spotify and looking at these early episodes when I had no idea what I was getting into. And the feedback came back fast. Andy, this is good, but it's kind of bland. You're just reading articles at us. And I thought, that's real fair. And that's the moment the podcast really was born, because that's when I invited my first guest. Episode 4, April 14, 2025. My gosh. Eric Larson, my buddy, philosopher, businessman, friend, was my first guest on the show. And we talked mostly about finances, which was an insane episode. And I got so much great feedback from it, like 10x my 3 monologues prior, just reading the articles. From there, season 1 became this mix of monologues where I would write an article and read it, and interviews. Andrew Beeler came on. Ricky came on episode 11, who would go on to become my producer and editor, and he's been one of my closest friends since kindergarten, but more on that later. My biggest guest of the season was Alex Osberg, an assistant coach on the Nike track team. An incredible guy. I still follow him and track him to this day. Bridget Nohara, Ike St. John, so many good memories packed into those first months. And frankly, they're just all my friends, all people that were friends of friends that I could call and they'd say, yeah, I'll be on your no name, nobody knows about podcast. That's what made Alex Osberg so special. He was the first person that I had on the podcast that I didn't know, and he was very generous to come on. Then I asked the question that I keep asking to this day: how do I make this better? And the answer was video. I came across research, and I couldn't tell you where I found it, but it said that most people actually prefer watching podcasts when they're not really watching. The phone's propped up on the kitchen counter playing video while they do the dishes. They're mostly just listening, but the video option is what they choose. And when I thought about the way I consume podcasts, I thought, oh my gosh, that's me. I've got YouTube up. I've got Spotify up with the video while I'm working around the house, and I glance at the video every now and again. And I thought, I can do that. And here's the thing about how I started with video. I started cheap and dirty, baby. Borrowed. My first microphone sounded like garbage. It was a $20 Amazon USB mic. And my friend Sarah Gast, shout out Sarah, literally mailed me a blue Yeti, or a Yeti blue mic, because she couldn't take the sound of that original mic anymore. And to be fair, I think I had it tuned in pretty good for episode 1, but then I messed with some controls and I could never get it back to sounding as good as episode 1 sounded. My camera was just this Logitech webcam I already used for my day job. That's it. That's what I launched video with. And the day I started recording video is the day Fulfillment Project started on YouTube. It was episode 3 of the podcast, my first video on YouTube. Do the people we hang around with matter? Look at this. This is 2 studios ago. Just incredible how far we've come. Look at that screenshot from a year ago. So just 3 weeks into this project, I'm on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now YouTube. Which brings us to the first thing no one warns you about: what it actually takes and why 90% quit. Every one of these platforms, holy smokes, it's a different planet, different language, different vibe, a different way people interact with it. And it turns out the majority of my time outside of planning an episode, recording and editing it, went to making all the collateral that supports the show. Show notes for Spotify, different notes for Apple Podcasts, a whole different description for YouTube. And then the one social platform I actually had, LinkedIn, where I was posting 1 to 5 times a week, trying to drive people to view the show or listen to the show. And here's one of the single biggest lessons of my entire first year. Write this one down. It took me 12 months to fully crystallize it. I'll save you just a massive amount of time. You cannot just promote your thing, whatever it is. You have to provide value. For the longest time, I was posting, hey everyone, new episode out, Fulfillment Project, go listen now. And it went nowhere because nobody owed me a click. It wasn't until deep into the year when it clicked in my head, I had an epiphany. I have to give the reader something valuable in the post itself, something that makes them want to lean in before they'll ever care enough to click a link and follow it. The way I write on LinkedIn today looks nothing like the way I started with. Same with Substack. I started all formal, all facts and proof, and like it was a college paper. And slowly it grew into a narrative form. I kind of found my voice, and it turned into stories instead of facts. And I have to go there. Oh my gosh, storytelling is super hard. It's the hardest part of this whole thing. I ask a guest a question and they give me an answer, but I don't want an answer. I want a story. Something with an arc, a beginning, a middle, and an end, some tension, some struggle, and then a beautiful resolution, or at least a resolution. Speaking that way is totally not natural. I thought because I was a good conversationalist, I'd be good at podcasting. Not the way it went. Podcasting is totally different than having a conversation. I'm sure it helped that I had some conversation skills, but this was a whole different type of craft. I've had to practice it relentlessly. I use AI prompts to rip my transcripts apart and give me ideas, tips, and tricks on how to get better at the way I speak, at the way I ask questions, at the way I follow up, or at the way I should just leave silence instead of inserting myself sometimes. I think it's truly why great podcasters and great guests are so good. This is truly an art form, and it only comes with a bunch of repetition. Having this podcast has made me appreciate so much all the really good podcasts I listen to on a regular basis. Wow, it's good. It kind of reminded me of football. Like you're watching a football game, and then during halftime, you go out to throw the ball with your friends and family. And it's like, wow, my shoulder hurts. Oh man, I can't throw a spiral. It's like what people make look really easy is really hard to do in practice, but they're pros, I suppose, and that's why it looks easy. So that stuff right there, the collateral, the platform juggling, the year it takes just to learn how to talk to an audience, that's why most people are gone by episode 3. But your old boy Andy was not done. So let's talk about what it cost me. Let's get into the money. It's crazy. I'm going to be radically honest here because rarely people are. I want you to crack open the hood and see the skeletons in the closet here. Total spent in 1 year, $5,215. Let me walk you through it top to bottom because every line, item, and every expense taught me something. The platform Substack is free. So when I started those first couple weeks, 0 expenses. But once I wanted to start a podcast, I did research, and Riverside is the app that most people use for podcasting. It's how you record this stuff. It's how you edit it. It's how you export it. It's now how Ricky logs in and sees all the stuff, and we collaborate virtually from long distance together. So that's $450 a year. Once I started pushing these podcasts out, the only leverage I had in the social media world, because I deleted all my social media about 10 years ago, was LinkedIn. So I had about 1,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'll get into LinkedIn in a little bit. I got Dripify for $326. This was the biggest waste of money. Insane waste. So it's a LinkedIn growth tool. It's essentially like an automated DM campaign. I ran it for 5 months trying to grow my following. But when I A/B tested it against just posting good content, organic posting won, and it wasn't even close. So I stopped the subscription. For the record, I started this whole thing with 1,193 LinkedIn followers, and today I'm at 3,428. And almost none of that growth came from the thing I paid for. Almost all of that growth came from solid value add content posting 1 to 5 times a day. Canva, $60 for the year. Album art, show art, the visual stuff, cheap and very worth it. Next is music licensing. $15 a month. And I had to learn this one the hard way. That bumper music you hear under my intro, it's invisible, it's in the background, and it's easy to forget about. And frankly, I did until episodes got pulled off platforms because I didn't have licenses for it. So now every note of music on this show is properly and legitimately licensed. And frankly, prepping for this episode, I realized this is an easy $15 a month to save. So that's why this app didn't have any bumper music, because I canceled my subscription and I'm just not going to do music anymore. And this is an easy cost I can add in later. Or with producer Rick, we're going to create our own bumper music. He was the drummer in my band for 20 years. I played bass in the band. So along with our buddy Garrett, who plays guitar, I'm hoping we can make my own bumper music one day soon. vidIQ. This is $19 a month. When I got serious about YouTube, I opened the analytics and it was truly an ocean. It's so wide and so deep, I had no idea where to start. vidIQ is a service that helped me actually read those numbers, and this is a big one. It helped me make dramatically better thumbnails. And on YouTube, thumbnails are everything. On podcasts, not as much, but on YouTube, thumbnails are huge. Let's just go back in time here. I'm looking at my screen. Okay, so the first 1, 2, 3 were just screenshots of the episode before I knew anything. And then my 4th YouTube video, episode 6 of the show with John Farmer and Weston Francis, I got crafty on Canva, put a big fat picture of myself, episode 6, and the title. Then I made a template with a fat picture of myself, the title of the show, episode number, and the title of the episode. Then with Ricky, who is my best friend from kindergarten, is currently editing and producing the show, I put his picture on because I thought people know what I look like. They're staring at me the whole episode. Let me put a picture of my guest on to honor my guest. So I made a template for that, and whenever I had a guest on the show, I put their picture up. Alex Osberg, Bridget Nohara, Corey Hyman, so many amazing people. Dom Schleter, oh, that was an awesome ep. Andrew Wyndham. And then you'll see here, episode 26, Agency, 5 Steps to Taking Back Control. My thumbnail game got much better. This is all because of vidIQ. And if I scroll through, Neil Twa, oh my gosh, Andy Elwood, Rachel Krentzman, Colin Stroud, who's become a good friend, oh my man, Nick Graff, just so much great stuff here. And vidIQ also helped make thumbnails for my shorts and my segments. Over 700 videos on YouTube now, so creating all that content is a lot. vidIQ helped with that a lot. So a worthy $19 a month, in my opinion. Then came the most exciting part for me personally. November 11, 2025, 8 months in, I decided to reward myself. Now, I've got a lifelong bad habit. When I get into something, I buy all the gear up front, and then, like a lot of people, I fall out of the habit before I ever use it. You know the story. You get into rucking, you drop $250 on a ruck, you do it for a month, and then it lives in the garage or in your weight room. You want to run, you buy the treadmill, and then 3 months later, your laundry's hanging on it. So this time I made myself earn the gear I wanted for the podcast because I didn't know if I was going to stick with it. I didn't know what it was going to be like. And I have enough wisdom over the years of doing this to know I have to set a target. If I hit the target, I can get the thing I want. So 8 months in, I was proud of myself. I saw a lot of runway and I upgraded. $1,700 for 2 Shure SM7DB mics with the stands and the cords and the stuff. Now, these are the best mics in the industry, bar none. I don't even think there's an argument about that. And I've been in a band my whole life. I love production, and that's part of the hobby for me is the solid production aspect of the show. So I didn't want to take a half step up. I went the whole step. These mics are way too good for me. I don't deserve them, but they sure are a lot of fun to have. Then, like anything really nice, there's a cascade of expenses because if you want a nice microphone, you need an interface that can handle that microphone. It requires phantom power. You got to get the mic into the computer. So it was $240 for the audio interface I use to handle 2 microphones because my goal at this point was to do in-person interviews. I'd done a lot of webinar interviews, which are good, but the vibe in person versus on a webinar is just worlds different. So I got an audio interface that could handle 2 mics for in-person interviews. That's why I got 2 microphones at this point. Also at the same point, since I started to drop cash, you know how it goes. Once you start spending, it's easy to spend. I got a teleprompter at this point actually as well, 8 months in, because so many of my interviews were webinar based. The teleprompter was $245. So I graduated from my webcam at this point to my phone because the camera on my iPhone is so much better and it connects to my computer. So I could record the show with my iPhone camera, but to see the guest, I was using my computer screen. So I had this funky setup where I would try and get them close together. But like for the Andy Elwood episode, some cords weren't working. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I had my phone over there. My computer was here. So I couldn't see him the whole time. I had my AirPods in, so I was listening to him. And behind my phone at the studio I was using at the time was a big kitchen. So I was just essentially for an hour staring into a kitchen, talking to Andy Elwood, and it was an incredible episode. What he's doing with agentic AI and grocery stores and grocery pricing is crazy. But it's just like the audience never had an idea what an awkward setup it was with the computer and the phone and all that stuff. So the teleprompter solved a lot of those issues for me, where now I can look at the guest, and in the teleprompter is my phone. I'm still using my phone to record video, number one, because it's free. I already have it. And number two, the iPhones take incredible video, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the world. So I've got the iPhone behind the teleprompter. I can see the person's screen, so it's all in one. It's so clean. It's really a game changer. If you're doing webinar interviews, I highly recommend it. I've even used it for my day job a couple times when I need to reference notes. I'll be on a webinar with someone and I'll have my notes up there and I can reference the notes without looking away, which is a pretty strong move. I don't know if I justify it just for that, but since I already have it, it's nice to implement that way. ISBNs, $295. This one still stings a little. I wrote a book. I'll come back to that. And to publish it, you need an ISBN. I bought 10 at a discount, figuring this wouldn't be my last book. Then I went through the Amazon self-publishing flow, and I learned they give you an ISBN for free. I didn't need to spend a dime, but I didn't know any better. Now you do. And Ricky, between $100 and $400 a month. Everything left over after if you add all that up, whatever the difference is between that and the 5,000 some bucks is what I pay Ricky month to month to edit and produce the show, depending on how much content we put out. Well, I'm just looking back at Ricky's invoices. March 16, 2026 with Emily E. Gurin, episode 50 was the first ep Ricky helped me with. And frankly, I was hitting a breaking point with the show where it was taking me between 10 and 15 hours a week to prepare the show, record the show, edit the show, create all the collateral, create all the shorts, create everything. And between my work life, my day job that pays my bills and supports my family that I really love and throw myself into, my family life, we were building a house. There was so much going on that it was getting really hard to find those 15 hours a week at lunch, in the evening, in the morning, on the weekend. And it started being every Sunday afternoon into the evening, into the early morning, Monday morning, I'd be working on the podcast to get it out in time for 5 a.m. Monday morning, which is when I schedule everything to launch. So Ricky coming on board, in my mind, saved the show a little bit, because I don't know if I could have made it through this season without him. I am so grateful for his help. So how do I justify $5,000 to my wife and to myself? Here's how I think of it. You walk into a casino, you put $100 on the table, and you walk out with nothing. Did I lose $100, or did I just buy myself a couple hours of a great time? For 14 months now, this podcast has been that for me. I stopped golfing. I gave up a bunch of extracurriculars I used to do, not because I had to, but because I wanted to be doing this, the podcast, writing my articles instead. Even if I shut it down today, I'd have to genuinely ask myself, was it worth $5,200? And the honest answer is, I think it's been worth a lot more than that. And I'll get to why. This is the funny part. This is what I made. I actually made money on this thing. Income for year one, $306. I'll let that sit next to the $5,215 I spent for a second. But here's the surprising part. That $306, which might as well be $3 million to me, because I didn't expect to make a dime on this. And it's amazing that people paid me throughout the year. And it taught me something. Early on, I put my Wednesday content behind a paywall. My Monday posts, which were a narrative of the podcast I put out on Monday, were free to everyone. But the Wednesday reflection guides, where I take the episode's lessons and help you personalize them to your own life, those I'd locked behind a paywall. That was going to be my monetization play. And to my genuine shock, a handful of people actually subscribed monthly and annually. But about 8 to 9 months in, I realized I had it backwards. My goal right now is not to monetize. My goal is to build enough value that enough people show up. because you can't sell anything if you haven't got anyone to sell it to. So I tore the paywall down. Everything's free now. Every Monday podcast, every Monday narrative, every Wednesday reflection guide. And I changed the ask to something honest. Everything I make comes out of my own pocket. The gear, Ricky, all of it. If it brings you value or if you want to support the work, you can contribute monthly or annually. And every single person who does, thank you. It truly makes a huge difference. It's so reassuring to know that, number one, people listen, and number two, some people care enough to actually pay me for this. Or if you aren't currently subscribed at Substack, or if you don't follow me on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes, I'd really appreciate if you went over there and clicked subscribe now. With Substack, you get all my newsletters for free, like I said. YouTube, you get my long form videos. I segment all the main topics from each video and drip them out throughout the week. And then I do short content for the little 30 to 60 second clips that are really captivating. Thank you so much. And then there's the book. I made a couple bucks on the book. Remember, I started this whole thing wanting to be an author. Well, instead of waiting a decade to put together content, submit it to a publisher, blah, 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 I just did it. I wrote and published the Thrive Mastery Guide. It's a summary of season 1, the key quotes, the key lessons, paired with the open-ended reflection questions from my Wednesday guides. So it's half book, half journal. I think it's really amazing. It turned out really well. A reader can actually take what I learned on the show and apply it to their own life. It's on Amazon right now. And to everyone who's bought one, thank you. I've made royalties on a book, which is shocking to me. Again, writing the book literally is only half the battle, and it was a huge lesson learned. Formatting it, the cover, the interior, the ISBN saga we talked about. There's so much more that goes into it than anyone realized, certainly more than I realized. But I did the thing I set out to do. And that means something to me. And that's one cool thing about this podcast, this Substack, is it's given me an outlet for a lot of creativity. I'm currently beta testing the Flex Planner because if you watch the show, you know I'm hyper into planning. I love to journal. And I thought no planners ever fit me just right. So with a small group of readers and listeners, I created this Flex Planner. I sent it all to them. And we're in version 2 right now. Version 1, we all ripped apart. We used it for a couple months. Version 2, we've been on for about 6 months. And once that puppy's ready, I'll release it on Amazon as well. And if you want to join the beta team, it's actually the V2 that we're working on right now is on Amazon. I don't make any money on that. I just charged enough for Amazon to print it. If you end up buying it, shoot me a DM and I'll include you on the group. So, if you're in the market for a genuinely terrible financial investment, start a podcast. You'll achieve massive world-class success at spending money. Net for the year, I'm about $4,900 in the hole, which raises the obvious question, why on earth am I still doing this? Hold that thought. First, the scoreboard, platform by platform. So I've done 64 episodes so far. Here's where they've landed. Spotify, I've got 96 followers, 2,221 plays, a total audience of 224. And this is interesting because this is a lot different than iTunes. Look at my geographic breakdown. 98% United States, 2% from India. Shout out to all my Indian listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. Apple today is a little smaller, though. I've got 45 followers, a total audience of 125, and about 1,300 plays. But this is the one that really surprised me because early on, Apple was my biggest platform, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't think anyone still used Apple Podcasts, and I looked at where these listeners came from, and compared to Spotify, it's so much more globally diverse. Look at this. Let me click into it here. On Apple, I've got listeners from Canada, Taiwan, Germany, New Zealand, Nigeria, Slovenia, Spain, Switzerland. 151 hours of listening from all over the globe. I have no idea why Apple is skewed so international for me, but it is, and it's wild. Next is YouTube, and this is just a different animal from Spotify and iTunes. There's no platform like YouTube I've ever experienced. 160 subscribers, a monthly audience of 1,500 people, and 217,000 views in a single year. Let me put that in context. Apple got me 1,300 plays, Spotify got me 2,200 plays, and YouTube got me 217,000. The recommendation engine puts me in front of so many strangers, which no other platform does at that scale. About 115 of those views came from the US. The other 100,000 plus came from 47 countries. Pakistan, Thailand, Estonia, Serbia. People I'll never meet in places I've never been are listening and watching to Fulfillment Project. We're going global, baby. We are global. Fulfillment Project. 2 things I learned on YouTube. 1, shorts. I've got 797 videos up. There, most of them are shorts, and for every single long form view I get roughly 100 short views. It's 100 to 1. And this is the catch. Every episode now spawns a pile of shorts and segment cuts, which is a mountain of extra editing. Before Ricky, this was eating me alive. It was 6 to 10 hours a week just editing. And it's one reason I love Ricky and I appreciate him so much, because he's taken this burden off of me and he handles all of this for me now. Next to Substack. Substack is totally different from YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify, completely different platform. So I've got 123 published articles on Substack. I've grown from 0 to 196 subscribers. Though over the year I have had a total of 348 subscribers, but I've lost 152 along the way. Substack people are fickle, man. You post something they don't love and they unsubscribe. It seems like people curate their Substack feeds a lot, because you post one thing, you get a bunch of followers, you post something else, you lose a bunch. For the whole year, I've had 19,344 views, mostly driven by my one Monday and Wednesday newsletter that goes directly to my subscribers' inboxes. My single biggest post, it got 1,162 views, was also my most controversial. I almost pulled it down 2 days after posting it because the blowback was intense. And I had a conversation with the person I interviewed, and we decided to leave it up. My third biggest post was another tough one that took heat on YouTube. And the lesson I took is you literally never know which episode is going to hit. One of my favorite episodes I ever recorded is like one of the least viewed ever. And to me, it was like profound and changed my life. And the audience didn't resonate. LinkedIn. My biggest time suck by a mile and a major miscalculation for my first year, and one I've been working on right sizing. Dozens and dozens of hours spent on writing collateral posts on LinkedIn. And while it's not worthless, it's driven about 800 people to the podcast. It's not valuable relative to the hours I've poured in. It's been wildly disproportionate. I started LinkedIn a year ago with 1,193 followers, and today I have 3,429, a gain of 2,236. More followers equals more influence equals more views and referrals to the show. So it's certainly not nothing, but it's just the wrong proportion. I think since LinkedIn was the only social media profile I had when I started, I just leaned into it too hot, too heavy. I built it into my ritual and routine so consistently that it became invisible to me because it was just part of my weekly process. And I'm tweaking that in the future, and I'll talk about the tweaks for the future here. So back to the question of why am I still doing this? 14 months in, $5,000 spent, $300 made. I'm writing on Substack. I'm posting on YouTube. I'm feeding Spotify and Apple. I'm grinding on LinkedIn. Some days I couldn't tell you why I keep going. I struggle with that question. But in the moments of clarity, it's honestly the people. 60 plus episodes. Guests on more than 40 of those episodes, from South Africa to New Zealand to England to Saudi Arabia. People I would never in 100 lifetimes have crossed paths with. And some of these relationships didn't end when the recording stopped. People like Jeff Matlow, a business coach I had on. we've continued our relationship. And through his mentorship, I'm a better man today at business and at home because he came on my podcast. Paul von Zielbauer blew my mind on his health and fitness work, and he opened my eyes to ageism and how it impacts the workplace. And then Paul introduced me to Laura LeBleu, the editor and founder of Geezer Magazine, one of the most crazy, eclectic, and fascinating people I've ever interviewed. A friend gave me Dr. Vic Strecker's book, who I had to have on the show after I cried reading the whole book. It's a book that is heart-wrenching about his recovery from losing his daughter. I interviewed Dr. Vic, and the next day he invited me into his house for a one-on-one conversation. None of those doors would have opened without this show, and I'm so excited to see what comes in the future. It's already been so life-changing, and every one of my guests, many of whom I haven't mentioned, have been so influential to me. I am growing light years. A lot of people pay a lot of money for coaching, and I'm getting coaching multiple times a week through this podcast. And granted, I am paying a lot of money for it, but not as much as business coaching costs, I don't think. Speaking of guests, though, one of the hardest parts is getting guests on the show because, again, Fulfillment Project is relatively unknown. So I DM a lot of people that I find interesting. I text friends who have interesting friends. And one example of a success, cold calling a friend who didn't want to come on the show, but he connected me to his friend Terry Schilling, who came across pretty controversial on the show for a lot of the audience. But I got this DM and they said, I completely disagree with Terry, but I'm so glad you had that conversation. It opened my eyes to what that side thinks. That right there is kind of the whole point of Fulfillment Project. I'm not trying to build an echo chamber. People are actually listening across the aisle because the only way to learn, I believe, the only way is to talk to a huge variety of people. And that's what this show is, which is also, I'll admit, probably the biggest risk of the show is you can't file me neatly under business or faith or health or self-help. I get told constantly by advisors and mentors, Andy, if you want to grow, you have to go narrow. Pick a lane, go deep on business, go deep on health, go deep on whatever, XYZ. But while I get that strategic approach, my answer is always no, because I'd lose interest in the show. And the day I lose interest is the day I just cancel the show or stop putting them out. I love business. I run a business. I want to grow in it. But business isn't the only thing in my life, and it's not the only thing in yours either. I care about my health. I care about my faith. I care about my family. I care about all of it. So the show is going to stay wide, an honest range of topics and people, because that's the only version of it I'd actually want to keep making. Oh man, thinking of some of the best moments in the past year, they came when I got home and my wife said, Andy, you had such an amazing guest on, such an interesting guest on your podcast today. Me and my sisters listened to it and it led to incredible conversation. And then it led to a conversation with me and my wife, with my boys listening. It's so cool to get home and have your spouse care about what you're doing. It's so cool. Now, there's other times where she thought it was total trash, and she's the second biggest critic to myself, which is actually really helpful. She's refined a lot of my rough edges, but knowing that she loves what I love is such a gift. Some heartwarming moments have come with my sons coming to the studio after an in-person guest or while I'm setting up for an in-person guest, and they sit in the chair and we do a mock interview. It's so much, it makes my heart melt. It's just so cute talking to them, asking them about the weather and the sky and their favorite sports and dinosaurs and animals. It's so heartwarming to have them in the studio and get to see what Dad's building here. My boys are probably my biggest fans, and in a way, I'm hoping all this information sinks into their minds as they grow older, so they grow up with wisdom that didn't come to me until I was much older. And I guess here's the last piece of my why. In my professional life, I've been doing my job for years. I'm good at it. There's always room for growth, and I'm constantly working to grow at it, but I'm proficient. I know what I'm doing. This podcast, my YouTube channel, my Substack, Spotify, iTunes. I am a total newbie. I'm learning video editing, the language of TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and vidIQ and YouTube analytics, all of it from scratch. I'm doing it pretty badly, and then a little less badly as time goes on. And it makes me feel young. You want to know how to stay young at heart? You keep learning. You keep being a beginner at something. This podcast, this show has given me that, and I didn't know how much I needed it or how much I would enjoy it. So, knowing everything I know now, 14 months, $5,000 later, would I do it again? Yes, without hesitation. So much so that I'm committing to another full year, and I'm going in smarter. Here's the plan. I've got a mountain of great content sitting at the bottom of my funnel. Incredible guests, real value, great reflection guides, a book, a forthcoming flex planner. But I don't have nearly enough people at the top of my funnel finding it. So I'm firing my Instagram back up that I started when I started the podcast, but it was too foreign to me, so I shut it down after a couple weeks. But I'm firing that puppy back up. I'm getting on TikTok, and to be honest, TikTok makes my skin crawl. I got off social media years ago, probably 10 years ago, on purpose because it was a drain on my life, my work, my family. That's actually why I started this whole thing with 0 followers and had to build from nothing, while anyone else would have had a head start with all their natural Facebook following and Instagram following. You put one post out, you get a couple hundred followers probably right off the bat. I had 0, but I'm diving back in because if I'm going to honor my guests, I owe them the biggest possible audience. The whole goal of the next year is to expand the audience. That's the whole game for year 2. Expand the top of the funnel so there's more people accessing what I think is really solid content. The people that do listen to this show, that do read my Substack, get a lot out of it. I'm getting good feedback. No one loves me more than me. But when the feedback comes from the outside, it's a litmus test of, okay, I think we're on to something here. So here we are. 14 months, 490 followers across my content platforms, plus another 3,400 on LinkedIn, thousands of listens on the traditional podcast apps, and hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. Could it be better? Heck yeah, for sure. Could it be a whole lot worse? Absolutely. I could have quit after week 2, after month 2, after the first year, after the 100th obstacle I came up against. But the only way to climb a mountain is one step at a time. So here I go, on to step 2. Truly, I'm so grateful you tuned in today. If you got something out of this, the best thing you can do, better than anything I can do myself, is share an episode with one person who'd love it. You could share this episode, or you could scroll through the catalog and find a topic that would interest a friend or a family member and share it with them. Me promoting my own show only goes so far, and you better be sure. I mean, you've seen everything I've done in the last year. But you sharing it is 10x what I could ever do. So thank you so much for all your support and help. And please like and subscribe. It's so corny. I feel so hokey saying that. But on YouTube, subscribe. On Substack, subscribe. Those are 2 different value sets you get. So subscribe on YouTube and Substack, and on either Spotify or iTunes, whichever podcast app you use. It genuinely means the world to me. It stokes the algorithm, which helps more people get to it. And it is a big deal for you to subscribe and follow and share with a friend. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Shoot me a direct message. Drop me a comment. Tell me what landed in the first 60 episodes. What didn't? What do you think I could adjust? I'm totally open. The reason my podcast is where it is today, my Substack is where it is today, my YouTube, is because I throw myself at criticism. So please give it to me. I can't wait to keep learning and keep growing with you right here besides me. Thank you so much for listening. It means so much. I'll see you next time.